to keep busy this morning, and so here I am making another loaf of bread, and I'm going to do half of this in buns and half a loaf. I've never made buns before, but I don't really see how that should be all that difficult. And so I'm just, actually this is the new cast iron pan that I picked up from Lodge while I was down the US, and I'm really sorry couldn't stay there longer. Would have been nice. But anyway, so I'm christening this one with its first loaf of bread today, and it is slightly different than the ones I have. It's got wider handles, but other than that it's exactly the same size. Okay, so sitting here today thinking about changes and chances of this world. I've had others inform me that someone informed me that house prices in Florida have pretty much doubled, and I feel for you. It's just as bad here, if not worse. Everyone's been priced out of the market here unless you're wealthy. So I have no idea what's going to happen here. Somebody think that this was Manhattan or something. No reason for Toronto prices to have increased to that degree, but they'll always justify it and find a reason. A lot of it was COVID related, interest rates being so low that prices just kept going up and up and up because they can afford it, because interest rates were low. But now that interest rates are climbing, unfortunately, house prices are dropping. But they climbed far, far too much. Anyway, let's see what happens. Boy, this has risen quite nicely. Okay, so it's gone through the first rise, and now I'm going to cut these up into buns. Let's see, 4 here maybe. Okay, and anyway, yes, I'm under the impression that yes, we are going to face a long, serious, deep recession here. They're actually admitting as much finally. I know in the US they seem to be very reluctant to use that word, but we're starting to hear it here. So, something that a lot of us have known about for a while. Those of us that have chosen to open our eyes and keep an eye on what's going on, and hopefully you've noticed that, yes, the sad thing with all these people that bought homes when they are overpriced, now that interest rates are rising, how many of them will actually lose their homes? How much will they drop in price? It's hard to say. I don't know if I've made these a little bit too large, but we're going to start off with that size now. Make good burger buns, hopefully. And if this works, I may make buns more often. Okay, may make them a bit smaller than this though. Okay, and I have a whole lot of things I want to do today, so this bread is only the first of them. I do have a pile of tomatoes that I've decided I am going to can up rather than throw away, and I probably have another lot that will ripen. They're starting to, so yeah, likely will ripen and in another week or two. And if they don't spoil before they ripen, they also will be canned up. No point in letting anything go to waste in this economic times. You know what? I think I'm going to bake these in my other cast iron pan as well. Okay. Should be able to fit 4 of them in here, no problem. So I'm just lightly buttering it right now. And I'm just using a skillet, the one with the rounded edges that I like so much. And here they'll go in for a second rising. Okay, so now I'm just going to cover these up. And they can sit here until they double in size. And I probably should have made these smaller, but they're done now. Actually, I've changed my mind. These are going to be way too big if I don't do something about it. So, I am going to cut a chunk off each one. Okay, let's roll them again. That's right. Because if these double in size, that's already huge. Okay. Okay, so skillet number 2. I do want to give them room to rise, so that's why I'm just going to put 3 in each. I think I want to reform that one a little bit better. Have it be a little more round. Okay, that's better. Okay, some butter for this one as well. And now I'm just going to let these sit in the oven just to rise, not to heat up or anything like that, but just to get them out of the way and let them rise for another hour. So many things we need to do, so many things we need to do. I still have a little ways to go, but yes, I'm glad that I split off these buns into 6 rather than 4. I think that they'll be definitely a decent size. They're not meant to be dinner rolls, but more like buns that can be used, say, for hamburgers. Can't think today. And I have a loaf of bread that's coming along nicely as well. So anyway, if these buns work out, I may do dinner rolls as well next time, and just a variety. I'd considered making some raisin bread, but I think I'll leave that for today. So this is going to be enough for the time being. I do a batch that usually makes 2 loaves at a time. I used to split it into 3. Mark didn't like the smaller bread that it made, so I've gone back to actually making 2 loaves of bread for the recipe that calls for 2 loaves, not 3. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tony from Her Homestead Skills, and well, I've got my second cup of coffee for today. I've got my pretty cup here, but it's a little bit on the hot side, and I'm going to set it aside and allow it to cool for a few minutes while we have our little chat. I appreciate every one of you, and those that think that I have a calming voice certainly can use a lot of calm in this storm that we are facing here. I do see a lot of people stoking fears, and maybe legitimately so. Maybe some people need to be woken up by fear. But I think you also need to give people hope, okay? I don't know how we can do that in this day and age. It's pretty difficult right now to see any hopeful signs, but I'm sure there are some if we look for them. Unfortunately, all I'm seeing is a lot of countries that are in a lot of trouble. I just did a bit of research today to determine how many countries are facing financial and economic issues, and apparently there's at least a dozen that are on the verge of not being able to pay their debts, which would mean they would be in default, and all of that has a snowball effect on other countries that they owe the money to, who in turn would also be affected. And anyway, so that's one issue. Then we have the ongoing issue of supply chain issues that are affecting the cost of everything. And yes, they are definitely trying to get people to buy less, to use less, and slow down inflation. And perhaps that'll work, perhaps it won't. Raising the price of everything, certainly people will cut back, but you can only cut back on so much food. Perhaps you can cut back on the luxuries like clothing and extra blankets and appliances, and unless of course your appliance is dead and you need to replace it. But you know, certain things you do have to buy and replace, and there are other things that, yeah, perhaps you can do without for another year or 2, and it might be a good idea to hold off on that rather than get into debt to buy them if you can't buy them outright, number 1. And number 2, if you can't even get stock. I'm also hearing that the rail strike may still be on, although I'm sure that the powers will be able to do their darndest not to allow it to happen. It seems to be that is the case, regardless of what the workers' rights may be in that scenario. They seem to be trying to force them back to work without coming to a resolution that everyone is happy with or everyone accepts. So that's never a good sign either. But if they go back to work, at least it will ease the flow of goods and services. We have issues with energy. OPEC cutting back on oil production. And why they chose to do it at this time, in spite of the fact that they were asked not to, is on the positive note. We have opened the border to the U.S. Doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. Hooray! That was too long in coming, but it's finally happened, and I think it's happened because he got pushed into it, not because he wanted to do it. Because he's been in lockstep with the U.S. on this one, and the U.S. has still not made the decision to open the border to the Canadians who are unvaccinated, as a matter of fact. Okay, the fallout from all of this has yet to be analyzed. We know that there has been a lot of damage done with the way this has been handled, and it has brought the world to the point we're at now. I don't think the so-called pandemic was as much the problem as the reaction to it has caused all the problems we're facing today, or at least a good majority of them. I have been through a number of recessions, but I have to admit that these so-called measures that have been put in place to save us from ourselves have done nothing but harm. At what point do people say, this far and no further? Well, that's happening in Iran right now, and in spite of how brutal that regime is, this far and no further is where it's going. Young people, those in charge have offered to negotiate some sort of settlement with the protesters, and the protesters told them in no uncertain terms, not a chance. Go away. We don't want you here anymore. So, can't say that they haven't put their lives on the line with the stance they're taking. There have been reportedly 180 or so deaths as a result of standing up to this regime. But I think that there is a point where people say enough is enough. I still think at some point that people have to give each other hope, give each other a helping hand. Don't try to spread fear so much as, okay, face the situation head on. We know that there are things that we're going to have to deal with. We know food prices are going through the roof. We know certain things, so change the way we do things. And yes, I was through the stores and I was shocked at the fact that a can of soup is $2 or $1.99, which is $2, and that a canned potatoes for $1.50, like, oh my goodness. Okay, so all those canned potatoes that I put up, will certainly save me a whole lot of money rather than buying them pre-made. But on the other hand, if pre-made is all you can get, go for it, you know. Yeah, so this morning I'm baking some bread because I had started baking bread and I actually like it so much better than the store-bought. I refuse to pay $4 and $5 for a single loaf of bread, and that's what it's come down to. On rare occasion, I might buy my lovely crusty Italian buns from the bakery, but I don't buy them the way I used to, that's for sure. So I'm attempting right now actually to make crusty buns, and we'll see how they work out for me. But No, I'm quite happy with the homemade bread that I make, and I'm quite happy with the price that I pay for them. Even if flour has gone up in price, I have stashed away quite a bit of flour. Now, it's only going to last so long, and eventually I will have to buy at the current price, but at least between now and then, which could be a year or two away, I don't know how much I have stashed, and I don't know how quickly I'm going to use it up. That's what it comes down to. How much are you going to use up very quickly? It's just Mark and I right now, but as I said, I know I've been through a number of recessions in the past, and I don't think I even noticed them the way I did this one. Perhaps it was just that I was too busy working and raising babies and trying to keep a roof over my head that I just couldn't focus on what the world was saying we were in a recession. And of course, I think the last time that the U.S. had a major downturn was a housing crisis that Canada managed to avoid, but not this one. This one, I think we're in deeper than even the U.S. is, so it's much worse. Someone stated to me that prices in Florida have pretty much doubled since 5 years ago. I think that's easily happened here, if not worse, and probably in the last 10 years they have gone up fourfold, not just doubled. So Ontario is not affordable anymore. I don't know how the young people are going to be able to buy a home. They're definitely going to be shut out, and if they don't do something to fix it, and even if they do, that'll take 10 to 20 years to work through the system to fix that. Not a short-term thing. Raising interest rates has cooled the buying, but that hasn't dropped the prices too much just yet. And even if it drops the prices by 30%, it's still too high for most people. The prices just went absolutely crazy. And yes, I worry. I know that the end result, when we get past this, will be awesome. The change will be good. You know, they speak of a woman in labor, how much pain she goes through in order to give birth. But once she's given birth, you completely forget all of it. And that's kind of the way I see what's going on in this world right now, is that it's going through birth pangs. It is changing. It is adapting, and it is struggling, and it's in agony. But when this is resolved, when we get past these days, and let's hope that they are short-lived, it should be hopefully something very worthwhile, having gone through all this agony for. I do expect the world to be a better place in 20, 30, 40 years. I may not be around to see it, but hopefully my children will, and their children will. So I'm hoping for a better world for them. It will come. Okay, my buns and loaf of bread seem to have risen enough for me to preheat my oven and bake these babies. Yummy. Bread, at least the buns are done. I took them out 10 minutes before the bread because they were smaller. And now I'm just going to give them a little coating of butter. And yes, I think I did get the right size, and I think Mark is going to love these. He loves tender bread, so these should be just perfect for him. I haven't separated them yet, but I will when they cool off. Okay, so just giving them the gleaming coating of butter, and I'm waiting another 10 minutes before I pull the loaf of bread out to coat it as well. Okay, and now my loaf has come out of the oven, and it too is going to get just a slight coating of butter. And we just leave this to cool. So I'm done with my bread baking for the day. And my new pan from Lodge that I bought from the Lodge factory has been christened.